release this one. That one was in the Pacific Ocean. So to your point, it's not that they're not releasing these videos, it just happens to be this one. I think the key here is that there was 41 minutes between the first strike and the second strike. So what happened? And also, they have not taken any other prisoners since they've had the opportunity to do that with future strikes or strikes after September 2nd. So what is it about this particular one? The last thing I'll say about this is the Epstein files, okay? You cannot stop the story from happening when you don't release the information. We saw that play out over the last 6 months with the Epstein files. They need to release this video or there's going to be a continued public outcry.
Sabrina, you worked at the Pentagon and the press department. If that second strike was done properly, why not release it?
Well, I think to what the conversation is around is like there is this gruesomeness of war here. I mean, we are talking about human beings being killed in international waters. And so if this had happened under the Biden administration, you know, there would be a declassification process that we would go through, similar to how these videos are released. But I do think for transparency's sake, and certainly to what Gretchen is saying here, there is this continuous drip coming from this administration. And the more you conceal, the more you hide, the more double speak that we get from Pete Hegseth, the more the public deserves to know the answers to what exactly happened that day. And frankly, the Department of Defense is asking for a nearly $1 trillion budget. So I think American taxpayers deserve to know where their money is going, especially when these are multi-million-dollar platforms being used to blow up small speedboats. I mean, they deserve accountability and transparency as well.
And Captain Donovan, I mean, there's a lot more evidence than just this video. I mean, there were a lot of eyes on this and a lot of communications about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you would have, excuse me, eyewitnesses who would have seen the video while it was playing in real time. You would also have chat logs. So whenever you're in a strike cell and you're prosecuting an airstrike, you have a lot of different players in that room and they need to be able to communicate. They may not all be co-located in the same location. So you would have chat logs, you might have emails, you would have something called BDA, battle damage assessment, and that's what happens when you put surveillance over a target after you've prosecuted a strike. And the person who is in charge of logging the BDA would mark what they see, whether or not you've actually hit the target. So all of that would be and should be documented and preserved according to law.
Do you think it's going to be released?
Do I?
Yeah.
Well, you have Laura Loomer now, conspiracy theorist, who has Trump's ear, saying that she's against these strikes. You have another conservative comedian, Tim Dillon, saying that he thinks that they're not releasing the video because they're covering up for the Epstein files. I mean, look, if you're going to continue to have these influencers who are on Trump's side, usually, saying that something is wrong here, that's something he can't control. And that leads to more and more conspiracy theories and public outcry. I think they're going to have to. Sabrina,
the fact, I mean, all these others, that the captain was talking about, all the other eyes that were on this, the chain of evidence, how is that kept? Is there a chance that that would be released at some point?
Well, that chat is something that's classified and usually operated on a classified system, so it'd be hard to declassify that. I mean, you could redact it, but that classified chat could be transmitted to Congress, along with the entire 41-minute video that I don't think Congress has seen. I think they've only seen a snippet of it. So yes, to answer your question, there are ways to declassify, there are ways to redact information. Will the public be able to see all of it? It's unlikely, but at least Congress should. And I think that's where the accountability and transparency, Congress needs to keep pushing for that and keep, frankly, pushing for Hegseth and Donald Trump to release this video.
And Captain, just one more on this. You believe that this is not a war crime because this was not an act of war. This was... If it's not a war crime, what is it?
That's exactly right. I believe that it's an unjustified killing. I hesitate to call it a war crime because we are not at war and we are not in an armed conflict. To me, it is just murder under federal law.
And Gretchen, just in terms of the way the president continues to lash out at female reporters, I mean...
If it was anyone else, if it was a CEO of a company, if it was a volunteer, if it was a teacher, they would be fired. I think we just all need to ask ourselves, especially parents, is this what we teach our children? Is this what we teach them about how to behave? There's not a person out there that would say, boy, I hope my child grows up and speaks to women like that. I mean, this is reprehensible. He has gotten worse with it, only doing it apparently to women in the last couple of weeks, from piggy to you're obnoxious. It's despicable. I wish the press corps would say more, but I understand they want access, so they're not, so I'll say it for them. It's despicable.
Gretchen Carlson, thank you very much. Captain Margaret Donovan, thanks. And Sabrina Singh, thanks so much. Coming up, newly revealed video dug up by CNN's K-File of what then citizen Pete Hegseth said back in 2016 about troops following potentially legal orders if then candidate Trump was elected president.
The military's not going to follow illegal orders. And so the Trump campaign was forced to change their position and say, we're going to try to change the law so that the military can operate within the law. That's a tall order also.
Plus, the president and his allies have targeted some of his critics with allegations of mortgage fraud. Well, now there are new questions about the president's own mortgage history. Stay with us.
The Source with Caitlin Collins, tonight at 9 on CNN.
Arthritis causes pain in your joints. Unlike pills, Voltaren